Okay, so get this. You're scrolling through Reddit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you come across this post. And it's from this 17-year-old kid who's claiming he got a sex worker pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a headline that makes you stop and do a double take.
It definitely grabs your attention. It really does. What I think is so fascinating about this is the reactions that it sparked.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
The comment section was wild. It
yeah,
was people calling BS and then other people like offering genuine advice.
right.
So for this deep dive, we have the original post, like this kid's plea for help,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have this like treasure trove of comments.
Yeah.
Can we make sense of it all?
I think we can give it a shot. For anyone who's not familiar with Reddit, it's this massive online forum where people discuss pretty much anything and everything.
Right.
And, because it's largely anonymous, you get this incredible range of opinions and personality.
Yeah.
It can be quite the rabbit hole.
It can be a rabbit hole indeed. But before we get lost in the comments, why don't we unpack why so many people were just immediately like, this is a scam?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard of those hooker pregnancy scams
Sure.
before, but they always seem kind of far-fetched.
Well, they're more common than you might think.
Really?
And they prey on some very primal fears. Imagine you're in this situation. You're terrified of the legal consequences, the social stigma, maybe even financial ruin.
Uh-huh.
You're vulnerable, and that's exactly what these scammers exploit.
So it's not just fear, it's also about manipulation.
Exactly. They often use very specific tactics like playing on guilt-threatening legal action
Yep.
or creating a sense of urgency to pressure the victim into paying up.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
One commenter even compared it to a roofer falling off of your house and then his wife demanding child support.
Right.
I thought that was a brilliant analogy.
It is a good one.
It really highlights the absurdity of the situation.
Yeah, it really cuts through the noise, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It makes you question the whole premise of the claim.
But what about the people who took the post at face value?
Okay.
I mean, even if it's a long shot, there's a chance this kid is being sincere,
Yeah.
right? He's 17.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he doesn't even realize this whole scam angle exists.
That's a valid point. And that brings us to the other side of the comment section.
Okay.
The pragmatists, these are the folks who, regardless of authenticity, offer genuine advice,
Right.
urging the poster to get a paternity test, seek legal counsel, and, make responsible choices.
Yeah, there were a lot of those comments.
Yeah,
Get an STD test, talk to your parents, that kind of thing.
right.
It was actually pretty heartwarming to see that level of support, even amidst all the skepticism.
It speaks to a certain human instinct to help,
Yeah.
to offer guidance, even in the face of uncertainty.
It almost makes you wonder, are some of these people projecting their own experiences?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe they've been in a similar situation or know someone who has, and it's triggering that desire to help.
That's a fascinating psychological layer to consider. It's like Reddit becomes this platform not only for information exchange, but also for emotional processing and support.
We should probably mention for anyone who's not super familiar with the legal side of things,
Yes.
that this whole situation could have serious implications because of the poster's age.
Of course.
I mean, we're talking about potential statutory rape charges.
That's right. And it's alarming how many commenters seem to gloss over that aspect.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder that the anonymity of the internet can sometimes lead to a disconnect from the real-world consequences of actions.
It's like some people forget that there's a real person with real-life problems on the other side of the screen.
Yeah,
It's a good reminder to be mindful of what we say and do online.
absolutely. Even a seemingly harmless joke can have unintended consequences.
So we've got the skeptics, the pragmatists, and then there's this whole other category of commenters who, well, let's just say they weren't exactly offering sage advice.
You're referring to the more, shall we say, flippant responses.
Yeah, the jokes, the memes, the whole join the military suggestions.
Yeah.
It was like this mix of dark humor and completely missing the point.
It's a reminder that the internet can be a breeding ground for negativity and insensitivity.
Yeah.
But it also raises an interesting question. Why do people engage in this kind of behavior online?
Right.
Is it a coping mechanism, a way to deflect from the seriousness of the situation?
Yeah.
Or simply a desire to stir the pot?
Maybe it's a bit of all of the above.
Yeah.
But it definitely adds another layer of complexity to this whole Reddit saga.
Speaking of complexity, I'm curious, what struck you most about the poster's responses?
You know what? It's their engagement with the lighthearted comments that really gets me.
Okay.
They were thanking people for the jokes, even the ones that were borderline offensive.
Interesting.
It's almost like they were seeking validation even if it came in the form of humor,
Uh-huh.
no matter how dark.
That's a really astute observation.
Right.
It suggests a certain level of desperation,
Yeah.
a need for connection, even if it's through inappropriate humor.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes about the psychology of online interaction, doesn't it?
Absolutely. But before we dive too deep into the psychological rabbit hole, why don't we take a step back and consider the bigger picture here?
Sounds good. Where would you like to go from here?
Well, we talked a lot about the reactions to this post,
Yeah.
but what about the poster themselves?
Okay.
I mean, regardless of whether it's true or not, they put themselves out there in an incredibly vulnerable position.
Yeah.
What do you think their motivation was?
Right.
Were they genuinely seeking advice? Or was there an element of attention-seeking at play?
That's a great question, and it's one that we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
So if you're as intrigued by this Reddit saga as we are, be sure to stick around for part 2. We'll be delving deeper into the psychology of the poster, exploring the motivations behind their actions, and unpacking the complexities of online identity.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so head over to our YouTube channel, Shauna Pelage, and let us know what you think of this whole situation.
And if you are enjoying Voices of the Soul, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the fascinating world of human experience.
We'll see you soon.
See you next time.
Welcome back to Voices of the Soul. We're continuing our deep dive into the world of Reddit and the post that had everyone buzzing a 17-year-old's claim of getting a sex worker pregnant.
Yeah, before the break, we were discussing the reactions this post received. You know, the skeptics, the advice givers, and even those who went for the dark humor route. But now I'm really curious to, unpack the poster side of things a bit more.
It's a natural next step. We've explored the reactions, but the person who posted this is at the heart of it all. Whether this is a genuine plea or a fabricated story, there's a human being behind those words.
Exactly. And like we were saying earlier, it takes a certain level of, well, maybe desperation to put such a personal dilemma out there on a platform like Reddit.
Think about it. They're navigating a situation with potential legal consequences, intense social stigma, and possibly even emotional turmoil. And yet they chose to share it with the world, or at least the vast, often judgmental world of Reddit.
It's almost like they're simultaneously seeking help and bracing for impact, right? Because let's be real, Reddit can be brutal.
Absolutely. The anonymity can foster a sense of detachment, emboldening some users to say things they might never utter in a face-to-face interaction.
Which brings us back to those flippant responses we touched upon earlier.
Yeah.
You know, the jokes, the memes, the join the military suggestions. It felt like a strange mix of dark humor and completely missing the point.
It's a phenomenon we often see online, this tendency to deflect from seriousness with humor, sometimes veering into insensitivity. It raises questions about how we as a digital society process complex and sensitive issues.
Maybe that's a coping mechanism. Like it's easier to laugh at a situation than to confront its gravity. Or maybe some people genuinely struggle to empathize with a stranger's online dilemma.
That's a profound point. It speaks to the challenges of fostering empathy in a digital space where human connection can feel so fleeting and transactional.
But remember how the poster actually engaged with some of those lighthearted comments? They were thanking people for the jokes, even those that were, well, a bit much. That always stuck with me.
That's a keen observation. It suggests they might be seeking validation even if it comes in the form of humor, however inappropriate. Perhaps any form of engagement, positive or negative, feels like a lifeline in their current state of distress.
It almost reinforces the idea that they're desperate for connection, for someone to acknowledge their existence, even if it's through a sarcastic comment or a meme.
Precisely. It highlights the complex dynamics of online interaction where even negative attention can feel better than no attention at all.
Makes you wonder if some users are drawn to these kinds of posts because they thrive on that dynamic. The drama, the back and forth, the opportunity to offer unsolicited advice, even if it's not particularly helpful.
There's definitely a psychological component to consider. Perhaps some people are projecting their own experiences onto the poster, or maybe there's a certain personality type that's drawn to these online dilemmas, seeing it as a chance to play the role of the helper or the voice of reason, regardless of whether their input is actually desired or beneficial.
We've all seen those commenters, right? The ones who always seem to have an answer, a solution, a judgment to offer, even when nobody asked.
It's a fascinating aspect of online behavior, and it ties back to our earlier discussion about the challenges of fostering empathy and responsible engagement in digital spaces. We all have a role to play in creating a more compassionate and thoughtful online environment.
Well said. And I think this whole conversation underscores the importance of remembering that behind every post, every comment, every username, there's a real human being with their own story, their own struggles. It's easy to forget that when we're caught up in the anonymity of the internet.
It's a crucial reminder, especially in an era where online interactions are becoming increasingly prevalent and influential.
Yeah.
We need to approach these digital spaces with a heightened sense of awareness, empathy, and responsibility.
Now, while we're on the topic of responsible engagement, let's talk about another aspect of this Reddit saga that I found particularly troubling.
By all means, lead the way. What aspect are you referring to?
Well, it's the casual way some commenters dismissed the potential legal implications, specifically the statutory rape aspect. I mean, we're talking about a 17-year-old here. The gravity of the situation seemed to get lost in the online noise.
You're absolutely right to highlight that. It's alarming how quickly some people jump to conclusions or offer simplistic solutions without fully considering the complexities of the situation.
And it speaks to a larger issue we're grappling with as a society, how to navigate sensitive and ethically charged topics in the often unforgiving landscape of the internet.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's a challenge that demands careful consideration and a collective effort to foster greater awareness, empathy, and a commitment to responsible online engagement.
So we've analyzed the post, dissected the reactions, and explored the complexities of online behavior. But the question that keeps circling back in my mind is, are we any closer to knowing whether this is a genuine cry for help or a clever internet hoax?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think that's part of what makes this story so compelling. The ambiguity forces us to confront the limitations of online information, the challenges of discerning truth from fiction in the digital age. And it compels us to engage in critical thinking, to question our assumptions, and to consider multiple perspectives.
It's like a digital mystery wrapped in an ethical dilemma. And maybe, just maybe, the journey of exploration is more valuable than arriving at a definitive answer.
That's a thought-provoking way to frame it. Sometimes the process of questioning, analyzing, and grappling with uncertainty can be more enlightening than reaching a clear-cut conclusion.
I couldn't agree more. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what key takeaways would you say are most crucial for our listeners to remember?
I'd say the importance of empathy, the responsibility of online engagement, and the ever-present need for critical thinking in a digital world awash in information.
Yeah.
And perhaps above all, the recognition that behind every online interaction, there's a human being navigating their own unique set of challenges and complexities.
Well said. And if you're enjoying this exploration of online behavior and the power of digital storytelling, stick with us for the final part of our deep dive. We'll be delving deeper into the psychology of online identity and discussing the broader implications of this Reddit saga for our increasingly interconnected world.
We'll also be sharing our final thoughts on this fascinating case and offering some parting advice for navigating the ever-evolving landscape of online communication.
Welcome back to Voices of the Soul. We're wrapping up our deep dive into that Reddit post that had everyone talking, the one with the 17-year-old claiming he got a sex worker pregnant.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, from analyzing the reactions and dissecting the comments to exploring the ethical considerations and psychological complexities of this whole situation.
But before we sign off, I think it's worth circling back to a point you made earlier, the idea that regardless of the post's authenticity, there's a human being behind those words, someone navigating a really challenging situation.
Absolutely. And that's a crucial point to remember, especially in the often detached world of online interactions. It's easy to get caught up in the debate, the skepticism, the humor, and forget that there's a real person on the other side of the
It
screen.
makes you wonder what their life is like offline. What led them to this point? What kind of support system do they have? Are they surrounded by people they can trust?
Those are important questions to ponder, and while we may never know the full story, I think it's an important exercise to try and empathize with the poster, to consider the range of emotions they might be experiencing: fear, confusion, shame, loneliness, perhaps even a desperate yearning for connection.
Yeah, it's a reminder that the internet can be both a source of support and a breeding ground for judgment and isolation. And for someone already feeling vulnerable, that can be a dangerous combination.
Precisely, and that's why it's so crucial to approach online interactions with a sense of responsibility and compassion. We may not always agree with each other, but we can strive to engage in respectful dialogue, to listen with an open mind, and to offer support rather than condemnation.
This whole conversation has really made me think about the power of storytelling, both online and offline. Whether this particular story is true or not, it's clearly struck a chord with people. It sparked debate, elicited empathy, and forced us to confront some uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the digital world we inhabit.
That's the beauty of storytelling.
Mm.
It has the power to connect us, to challenge us, to make us think differently about the world around us. And in a world that can often feel fragmented and isolating, that's a powerful thing.
Couldn't agree more. So as we wrap up this deep dive, What final thought would you like to leave our listeners with? What's the one takeaway you hope they'll carry with them?
I'd say it's the importance of cultivating both critical thinking skills and empathy in our online interactions. We need to be discerning consumers of information, questioning what we read and hear, while also remembering to approach each other with kindness, understanding, and a willingness to see beyond the screen.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'd like to thank you, our amazing listeners, for joining us on this journey into the heart of Reddit and the complexities of human experience.
We hope you found this deep dive insightful, thought-provoking, and perhaps even a little bit transformative. And if you're enjoying Voices of the Soul, we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Shauna Pelage, for more deep dives into the fascinating world of human connection, digital culture, and the stories that shape our lives.
Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep those voices of the soul alive.